pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence for the soldiers at Fort Hood, Texas, if we could. Thank you. The first order of business is approval of the minutes. March 3rd, 2014, the executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. March 17th, the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to recuse myself. I was absent.
3-0, one abstention. March 31st, 2014, work session meeting.
I'd like to pull those for review, if that's okay with everyone. So continue, move to continue.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 4-0. Announcements and presentations. We have Friends of Canachet Winter Digital Photo Contest. Kathleen Kelleher is going to do a nice presentation, so we look forward to that.
Because of a generous donation from one of our members, we were able to conduct an amateur photography contest this winter. We're conducting another contest in the spring and another contest in the fall. This is a 3-season amateur photography contest. The honorable mention winners are Ava Donadio. This is her picture. She's 7 years old. This is the split rock. That's what Ava calls it. And as you can see, she's a pretty good photographer for a 7-year-old. She took this picture with her Kindle Fire tablet. So. You're welcome.
Congratulations, Ava.
Another winner in the under 12 category is Lily Weiss Wessover. She took a picture of the trail at Canachet Farm. And I find this a very interesting picture because I almost feel drawn into it. And I wonder what I'm going to find after I go around the corner. Congratulations, Lily.
Congratulations.
The next category is the adult honorable mention. The winners in that category are Carol Stedman for her photograph of a red-tailed hawk in the tree. Carol? You're welcome. And David Filton for his photograph of ice, something that we saw a lot of this year at Canachet Farm. You're welcome. The grand prize winner of $100 is for this picture, and this is Nina Doyle, who is Nina is 14 years old, and on the first day of no school because of snow, she took her German Shepherd to Canachet Farm and took this beautiful picture. Nina, congratulations. For our spring contest, I've left some flyers on the back table, and if anybody is interested in participating in that contest, they can get all the information they need from the flyer. And I want to thank Jan Amor, a professional photographer who volunteered his time to judge this contest. And I also want to thank Parks and Rec Director Steve Wright, the town manager, Pam Nolan, and the town council for all the support they've given us this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job. Next on the agenda is 2 acknowledgements, and I'd like to speak to both of them. I'd like to recognize 2 departments in the town of Narragansett, the wastewater treatment and the park and rec department. These 2 departments have been recognized for their vision, their leadership, and their hardworking employees, and for providing excellent customer service to this community. They have been recognized by their colleagues all across the state of Rhode Island. I'd like Jeff Cesarine and Steve Wright to come up. Jeff Cesarine, Narragansett Wastewater Treatment Award, Good Government and Good Neighbors equal clean water. Nice job. Steve Wright, Park and Recreation, received Department of the Year Award. Congratulations to you and the departments that you lead. A job well done. I have a plaque for you, Steve, and I think, Jeff, yours is hanging on the wall. Next on the agenda is a proclamation for Daniel Beasley, but I'm not sure he's in the audience tonight, so maybe Matt Mannix will speak to it.
Yeah, it's for Daniel Beardsley of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, who's been in his role at the Cities and Towns for 40 years. So we are not going to read the proclamation this evening, but we do want to recognize him for his work. Usually we don't read the proclamation if the person's not here. And Pam, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you. Tomorrow, I'm going to take your proclamation, the town's proclamation, to a meeting of Rhode Island City and Towns, which I'm on the board of, and we're going to, Mayor Scott Avedisian did call all of the towns and ask for this proclamation, so everybody's bringing one for Dan Beardsley. He's been here 40 years. I know when I was in Westerly 10 years ago, I knew him well. He's very valuable to towns and cities in the state of Rhode Island, and I'm very happy to take this and glad that you made this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Open forum. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address. Anybody for open forum? Stanley?
Stan Wojciechowski in Narragansett. I wanted to talk a little bit about financial fraud, if you will. First, I want to try to define financial fib. I call a financial fib is when I go and ask Mary for $20 and say, I don't have any money, can you give me some money? And I really have $5 in my wallet, you know. So I call that a financial fib, and that's not a big issue, but still it's wrong. It's a fib. And then I look at, I define something called a financial lie. Financial lie, you go for a car loan or a loan somewhere, and you notice that they probably don't have all your financial loans and status, yet you let it go and you don't tell them. So they give you a favorable rate. Whatever the issue is, you get a deal because they didn't have the right information and you didn't tell them. So I call that a financial lie. And that kind of tugs at you, but you say, well, the banks make a lot of money, so no big deal. The final issue is what I call financial fraud from my perspective. Financial fraud is when we start getting into millions of dollars, a Madoff type thing, millions of dollar problem. And that's when I get nervous and I say, you know, financial fraud, somebody needs to be careful about that because maybe they should be fined or jailed for this kind of issue. And that brings me to the point of surplus. I've been fighting surpluses, or the word surplus. We say we have a surplus in this town, And in a paper just recently, it noted that we had a surplus of $983,000. Then it said something like 1.707 million. And I've been told many times we need to have a surplus so we can have a low interest rate on our loans. And that tells me that do we really have a surplus? We're saying we have a surplus so we can get this rate. So I think that's kind of a lie and fraud. We're committing a fraud because we're saying we have a surplus when in fact we don't have a surplus. We haven't paid our pension bills, let's say. There's a pension bill problem. I think we're in critical status according to this. It's below 60%. Not much, but it's below 60. So we're in critical status. We haven't paid a pension bill. So we haven't paid our bills, yet we say we have a surplus. That's not right. And it's concerning millions of dollars because your pensions are involved with millions of dollars, and now we're going to go for
Thank you,
loans
Stanley.
and bonds. And
Wrap it up.
I think we're going to be lying as we say we can afford to borrow when the fact is we don't have the money. It's a lie. And now it's brought to your attention. You're participating in a fraud. If you don't stop the bond idea, we can't go for that loan. It's not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Anybody else for open forum? Pat? State your name and address, okay?
Name is Patrick Brady, 156 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett. I'd kind of like to echo Stanley's concerns about the finances of this town. I haven't done a lot of research on it yet, but I plan on doing so. I think there's a big white elephant in this room, and I think Stanley sees it. I think Richard Vanderhouse sees it, and I am beginning to see it. And I think it's a very big elephant, and it's called our pension liability. About 3 or 4 months ago, Councilwoman Hagopian raised the issue of a problem raised by the outgoing financial director, giving a report that showed what a serious situation we have in this town. And that she refused to vote on any bond issues, approval of any bond issues going before the voters because of the emergency that this town has. I went to a workshop the other night talking about the problems with the pension system and its relationship with the school, raised some serious issues. The statement is made that we went from 16% paying for our pension system per year, and we're proposing to go to 38, and that's going to put us over the 60% limit. But I read articles in the paper that say that we're going to reach 100% in 2 years. I have a problem with the school department raises the issue that they have to come up with $712,000 to meet their pension liabilities, but they don't have it. They only have half of it, $350,000. And they're going to ask the town's municipal budget to pay for their pension system for $350,000. They say that they have reduced or limited their capital expenditures in order to pay for their pension. But my understanding is that the school committee is volunteering $500,000 for a bond issue for the new track at the school and a hiking path. Well, I think the bond issue needs to be reduced because obviously the school committee doesn't have the money for the $500,000 unless the town pays for it, not the school. So this is an opening volley, let's call it. I really think this town needs to, when they present the budget, present graphics with it. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And I hope that I have some graphics for this council about just how serious a situation we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Bob?
Good evening.
Name and address.
Oh, I live on Succotash Road. I own a business in Jerusalem, about 40 years. And I've been away for 3 months, so now I'm back to reality. And I'm looking at reality right now. Two people who saw a need and responded to it, and two people that, for whatever reason, decided to eliminate the problem, whatever that is. I guess I'm the problem, or I guess the public is the problem, the people are the problem. And some people have more credibility than others, or some people have more influence than others. And for some unknown reason that I've never been given a reason yet, you have, after 5 years or so, looking at a problem, realizing that the problem can be met, realizing that the problem would cost the town nil, and at the same, but the need isn't important to you as representatives of the people. I listen to Washington Journal quite a bit in the morning, people calling from all over the country. One guy spelled it out. I mean, he's just losing faith in the motivations and the way people go about dealing with the public's business in this country. Even though we're the best country in the world, facts are we've got our problems. And when you've dismissed this sewer project in Jerusalem, you haven't dismissed the need. The need still exists. All you've done is, it's a Pontius Pilate item, you know, wash your hands of it. Well, we just can't deal with it. Well, I've got to deal with it. There's 75 people down there that still have to deal with the situation, and I still haven't been given an explanation by any person, by the people that were awarded today. I love to come to these things because I love seeing people do, I like to see you giving people in the town recognition, and I think it's great. But I haven't figured out why we're, what's wrong with us over there. If I could do it, and I don't know, maybe I'll fool around with it. I like to secede from Narragansett and South Kingstown, make it our own little town down there. We can tax ourselves and we'd be fine. You know, what do we
Time's
have to do?
running out, Mr. Draco.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I'll be back. You know that.
I know.
It's unfortunate that I had something written here, but I can't do it. And I want to meet with the town manager, but I'm afraid to because I don't want to meet with her and get her in trouble. I don't want to get her fired. I wouldn't want her to make a decision that people didn't like.
Thank you. Anybody else for open forum in the back? Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Fred Bartlett, 151 Ocean Road. This is our 20th year of putting on a race in Narragansett. It's called the Furman Half Ironman Triathlon. Over the course of all the years, we've raised about $200,000 for the town. The race is run by an organization called FIRM, F-I-R-M, Racing Management. So every September, the first Sunday after Labor Day, the town has allowed us to put on a half Ironman triathlon, which goes back 20 years almost now. I think I've been involved 19 years here in Narragansett. So this is a race that, after it's said and done, half the profits go to the town of Narragansett, to the Parks and Recreation Department. So I'm here tonight to give 2 checks to the town for $3,000 each for the Parks and Recreation Department for financial aid, and the other department is for special needs for programs. So I have 2 $3,000 checks from last year's race. Again, it's the first Sunday in September after Labor Day, and we have just a wonderful community here, and I hope that the town council will approve the race in the following years. There have been some super people that have helped us over the years. 2 people that have been involved from day one. Tom Tessitore of the Recreation Department, Ryan Smith, I think he's in Highway now, and then obviously the last couple of years with the Recreation Department with Scott Hassel, Steve Wright, the Police Department, the Fire Department, the Highway Department, and the Public Works have all worked really well in conjunction with this race, so that it gives me great pleasure to give the town $6,000 tonight from the Fernman Triathlon from 2013.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Anybody else for open forum?
Susan, I meant to mention something.
Oh, okay. Mr. Mannix has
Yes,
something
I
to
just,
say.
I had a brief thing based on the Chamber of Commerce and the Towers Committee, just a brief summary of what's going on there. James Callahan and I met with representatives of the Chamber of Commerce and the Towers Committee on March 26th to discuss the use of office space in the towers. The two organizations have agreed to work together to welcome visitors to the town of Narragansett. At this time, there's no plan to remove the chamber from its existing space in the east side of the towers, and we will continue to work with both organizations as the summer progresses. So just wanted to update everybody in town on what was going on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we're going to move on. We have our public hearing at 8, but we're going to move on. A motion to schedule a public hearing on the 2014 Community Block Grant Disaster Relief Application. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
And I have a, all in favor?
You have a date.
I have a date, April 21st. Does that work for everybody? Yes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. A public hearing on a petition from Bonnet Shores Beach Club Association to amend the Class D liquor license by amending the restrictions of entertainment that is allowed. Do I have a motion?
It's a
Oh, I have to
little
wait
early.
to eat. Okay. Let's go right to the consent agenda. Okay, any of the council members would like to pull anything?
Yes, could we pull number 4?
Anybody else? Any items other than 4? Okay, let's approve the consent agenda excluding item 4. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Item 4, a motion to approve the offer from the South County Garden Club to provide at no cost to the town all the evergreens, deciduous trees, flowering shrubs, irrigation system for the new landscape plan to replace the arborvitae tree line in Gazebo Park. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
With discussion. Susan.
For discussion.
You need to
All in favor, we have to pass, we have to,
Just for discussion.
just for discussion, okay.
So we've gotten some discussion about this agenda item, so we wanted Steve maybe to come forward and describe what's going on, and then see if there's, several people have emailed us on this issue of these trees coming in at the post office.
Sure, good evening. Well, as you know, around the post office, the Gazebo Park area, back in 1993, the Historical Society had planted approximately 48, anywhere between 35 to 48 arborvitae trees, and they had died or started dying in this area between Hurricane or Tropical Storm Irene and Hurricane Sandy, and we had removed them about a month ago and have started to develop a plan to replace those trees. And we had started working with the South County Garden Club, who have stepped forward to partner with us at no cost to the town, and developed a plan by a landscape architect. The plan, the area, first of all, is a very windy area, and it gets a lot of windswept salt spray. So instead of having one species of trees, what was developed and decided upon is to have a diversity of trees that will sustain any type of natural disaster. So the plan that it was set forth that is in the package tonight is a diversity of trees. So there's 3 different types of trees and shrubs that you can see. So what I'd rather do is answer any questions you have on that plan. The plan is a total of $10,500 worth of material, including irrigation, which we will maintain over the course of the next several. We're going to be planting those over the next couple of weeks. There's a short time frame, and the material is going to be purchased from Central Nurseries.
So,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
A lot of the emails I've gotten, they're very concerned about the height of the tree and blocking views. Is there any way that you could maintain a level, say perhaps about 6 foot high, maximum height for the plantings there?
Well, the trees that are going to be installed right now, they're going to be going in at 5, 6, 7 foot height. And they will grow, because of the area, first of all, they will restrict the height. Typically, that area will restrict the height of any tree that we put in. So they won't grow any more than a foot a year. And the existing trees that were taken down, the arborvitaes grew to about 20, 25 feet tall since they were planted in 1993. These trees that are being put in, some of them are deciduous trees and some of them are cedar trees. And they act as a backdrop to the gazebo for weddings, and they will act as shade trees to block out the parking lot and the dumpster that are there now. The post office is a 30-foot high building, so they'll never go higher than what the existing trees were at the time. So if we're putting them in now this year at 5 to 6 feet, and they're growing at no more than a foot a year, it'll be 15 years before they even get to the height of 15 feet.
so
Yeah, but that's where the opposition is. The opposition is blocking views there. The ones that were there, they weren't very attractive.
Well, those
we
are
can agree
arborvitaes.
on that, and I was just wondering if they could have been trimmed years ago too.
Well, those are arborvitae trees. These are not what's being replaced. Annie Richardson is here from the South County Garden Club. I mean, could come up and speak on that behalf. I mean, be more than happy to speak to you.
so I just want to echo.
No, I understand I know what you're saying. I understand the way you explained it to me. The question I have is there an alternative to keep the height of the plantings down so that you won't obstruct others' views?
Well,
from, namely, the condominiums across the street or of that nature.
well, the design is so. If you look at the design, there's some in the corners, some in each corner around the gazebo, and then the cedar trees are in the middle. So there will be higher trees at one corner, and then they drop down. And so it is designed to be diverse in look and backdrop. So they won't be all one species across the whole. And they are run parallel with a parking lot. So it really depends on what view you're looking at.
So, Steve,
And the other question I have, Steve, a lot of the damage to the trees that were there was caused by salt spray, I assume, right?
That's correct.
So after we have a storm like that, perhaps we need to wash them down? Would that be helpful?
Well, and that's a good point, and that's why the selection of these trees are actually selected to mitigate some of that salt spray for this area. And we're also putting a water supply into that area. We actually have that on order because there's no irrigation in that area now, and that's also part of this project.
Okay.
So, Steve, it's a generous offer, that $10,500 for all that work is great. People have really come out and said they like the historic building, the post office, they like the openness. I looked at the plan. I think the low-growing shrubs look great. I'm concerned about the tree lines, too. Over time, if it's going to be 5 or 6 feet, it's going to grow every year. In 15 years, we're going to end up with the height again. So I agree with the plan, but I would like to kind of modify the tree lines because I think what we heard is people want to enjoy the ocean. They walk, they see the post office. They kind of like that openness. So if we could we'd appreciate the plan from the garden club, and if we could just maybe modify the tree lines and not put the pines or the arborvitaes, keep all the other shrubs, I think that would be a good compromise. I don't know. Anybody else?
I don't see any arborvitae's here, right?
Well,
So
there won't be arborvitae's.
Just the pines?
Again, yeah, there's the,
red cedars and the pines, I think, is what probably you guys are reacting to, right?
the Winter
Right.
King hawthorn are in the corners, in the
Oh,
red
right.
cedar. Again, these are all chosen for this area, specifically for this area to withstand the salt spray and the wind. And if you think about how this area is used for a backdrop for weddings and special events, for shade, the deciduous trees, they'll lose their leaves during the winter. And they will not, again, if you Google these trees and you see the height, these trees will be restricted because of these areas as far as their growing rate. They will not grow that fast into this area. I mean, it is what it is, so.
I mean, I'm not a, believe me, I am not, our yard needs a lot of help, right? So, but, I mean, the height aside, the appeal of this for me is that it appears you got, for all seasons, aspects of blooming or color, or when the flowering shrubs in the spring are not blooming, you still have the red cedar, you still have the greenery of the, so to the extent that you can still achieve some level of that, I think that's appealing. They make smaller versions of these, whether maybe there's a Japanese maple that you can replace with for the cedar. I don't know. I mean, I'm sensitive to the community and the aspects of concern around the height, but they're not, the whole line is not at that height either, right? So I'm certainly not the expert. I want to defer to the folks who are impacted by it, but I do want to preserve that essence of beauty in all seasons. What the last thing you want is what my yard looks like, which is a bunch of hydrangeas that look like stalks all, winter long, right?
This plan provides color throughout the seasons, and provides diversity, and that's what I mean, again, this is done by a landscape architect, not by myself. So, and it is for the area. It was designed for the area, not for my backyard. So,
right.
And I leave it to the experts. So.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I'm just wondering, could we hear from the public, or are we running out of time?
Yeah, I think you have to close it down and
All right,
do the public hearing.
So we can come back to item 4? Okay, we're going to open the public hearing then. So we'll have to come back to item 4 on the consent agenda. We're going to open the public hearing on a petition from Bonnet Shores Beach Club Association to amend the Class D liquor license by amending the restrictions of all entertainment that is allowed. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion on that?
No, we're going to open
They're
it. We're
scheduling.
going to
Opening
open
it.
it. All in favor?
Just
Opening the
opening
Open
the
it. We're just
hearing.
going to vote to open it.
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Public motion is open. For the Bonnet Shores petition for the entertainment. Welcome.
She needs to get set up
She's
first.
going to have to get set up, so just be a minute. Zach? Yes. Okay, just give her a minute. And we'll come back to 4. I'll say, you have to swear him in, right? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Richard Sherman. I am counsel for the Bonnet Shores Beach Club Condominium Association. I'm not here to present any testimony. Mr. Zach Stedman, who is the general manager of the club, is here to explain the basis for the petition and to answer any questions that you or any member of the public may have.
Thank you for taking the time to hear us.
Can you swear him in, please, first? Can you swear him in? No. Okay. Sir, please raise your right hand.
Yes.
You swear to tell the truth, the matter now in hearing?
I do.
Okay, could you please state your name and spell it for the stenographer?
Zachary Stedman, S-T-E-D-M-A-N. We'd like to amend our liquor license to allow entertainment on Friday nights. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Beach Club. We have an outdoor area where we have our entertainment right now on Saturday nights and on Sunday nights. Saturday nights go until midnight, and Sunday nights go until 9 p.m. We'd like to open up to Friday nights to allow us to be a little bit more competitive with having different functions on the Friday night. Right now, we're limited because we can't have the entertainment on the Friday nights. It opens up some weddings, some graduation parties, and stuff like that. We're asking for 11:30 p.m. And this won't be an every Friday event. It's not like we're going to be booking entertainment every Friday through the whole summer. Our season goes from the third weekend in May until the last weekend in September. Our entertainment schedule goes from, we start doing functions early in the year, right around that third week of May. But our weekly entertainment on Saturday and Sunday nights is from the first weekend of July until Labor Day weekend. So we wouldn't have every Friday night. Like I said, it would be kind of basis on different parties that we have or that we book. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than willing to answer.
I do. Why did you have the restriction on the Friday night to begin with?
Do not know. Yes.
I was involved with the renewal of the liquor license a few years ago on behalf of the club. And that was a negotiated term at that time.
Why, though? Why was Friday night restricted? What was the reason for that?
Because at that time, the club was only interested in having live entertainment.
I can't hear you.
The club was only interested in having live entertainment on the Saturday and Sundays, and hadn't thought about the possibility or the prospects of limited entertainment on Friday night, and that's the reason that the restriction is in there.
The council restricted that?
Yes, I mean, there were some negotiations between the club and the council in the context of a hearing before the Department of Business Administration, and that's what was agreed upon at that time.
You see my concerns. I'm kind of interested in the reasons why they denied it when you first negotiated it for Friday nights. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, Councilman, it was a question of denying it. It was a question of, at that particular time, the club was not planning on having any functions on Friday night that would require entertainment. And that's the reason that it never came up in the context of the negotiations.
But generally, I think my colleague's point is you would never put a restriction on something that wouldn't come up. It would be a conscious thing to actually, impart a restriction. It's just curious, I think, is the question.
Well, all I can speak to is my role in that process, and that was what was negotiated at the time. Whether the club at that time was contemplating the prospect of entertainment on Friday night or not, I do not know.
So presently, Friday nights are until 9, and you're just looking for it until 11:30?
No, we don't use Friday nights.
At all, so you want it to 11:30?
Correct.
Friday nights?
Correct. We've expanded our private function business now from where we were prior. We're picking up a lot, doing a lot more private functions. So that's why it wasn't a concern before, but now it's more of a concern.
Getting back to the attorney, what's the difference if you have an entertainment on a Friday or Saturday night if it's going to 11:30? That's maybe another part of my question. Why wouldn't you want to do that then? Why wouldn't you want it then versus now? No?
Because there's bands on those nights, but on Fridays, there's more private functions coming in.
Oh.
So they didn't have that before. So I don't know if the rationale, I think it was 5 years ago. Is that before your time, Ann? It's before 5. So, but right now they're adding a lot, the Beach Club is adding a lot of weddings on Fridays and things like that. So it's not normal entertainment.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
I do have one question, Bob. I don't know if you know this, but do you know, are there any other existing restrictions on this license?
Just what I put on
Just what's on the sheet should
So,
be, I
okay.
think there's nothing on, was it nothing on the beach and nothing on the
Yeah,
Friday night?
that's, I just didn't know
Yeah.
if there was anything beyond this, okay.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the public.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody would like to speak on this matter? Anne Marie?
Anne Marie, swear to tell the truth in the matter now in hearing?
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the stenographer.
Anne Marie Silvera, Silveira. I'm a proponent for the Beach Club. They do a good job there. They've abided by all the restrictions that they've always had, and I just think it's a nice place for people to have a function if they want, and a Friday night is just as good as a Saturday night, in my opinion. So I'm for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter now in hearing?
I do.
And could you please state your name and spell it for the stenographer?
My name is Robert Lovegreen, Lovegreen. I live at 20 Diane Road, which is right across the small end of the pond from the beach club. There is no structure or anything between the beach club and my home. I'm opposed to this particular motion. Approximately 10 years ago, we had some litigation, and it was before the town council. And the problems then are the same as they are now. The noise is far too excessive, and the hours are far too long. The council at that time restricted the hours and the nights. The beach club appealed to the liquor control administrator. We had a hearing up there, and the town was involved because Mr. McSally, your town solicitor, was defending the town council's decision restricting the liquor license. I was present. I testified. I'm a lawyer, so I also did some legal work. There was, after the hearing, actually just the town put its case on, and the hearing officer suggested that we meet and have a mediation or a negotiation to try to resolve the problem. It was not just a negotiation between the Business Administration Office, the Town Council, and the Beach Club. There were a lot of neighbors there in opposition, and we also joined in that negotiation. Not me personally, but many others did. As a result of that negotiation, at least from our perspective, we came away with the understanding that there would be some live music on Saturday nights and some on Sunday. And the hours on Saturday night were cut back from 1 a.m. to 12 midnight. And that's the way it stood for quite a while, even though the noise problems and the time limitations were still, in our opinion, excessive. But over the years, this understanding continued. Mr. Stedman, who has been a very fine beach club manager and a very decent person, only came on board 2 years ago. Before then, there were 3 other town managers that we had to deal with from time to time. We have had pretty good negotiations and understandings with the beach club as long as it was only Saturday night and Sunday. Saturday is from 8 to midnight. Sunday is from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that's every single weekend from mid to late June until after Labor Day. And every single weekend we have, or they have, a band. The band plays Saturday night, and I believe in most cases also on Sundays during those hours I just suggested to you. The noise is incredible, but we had an understanding, and the surrounding neighborhood realized that some things they gave us and some things we gave them. This particular motion seems to me a break in that understanding. They indicate that they want to have some opportunity to have wedding receptions and private functions. Yet, the practice has always been, at least in the 10 years I've been living down there, that they negotiate with and contract with bands well in advance of the season for every single weekend. If they wanted to have private functions and wedding receptions, why not leave open a few weekends so they're available for these receptions and private functions? By putting a band in every single weekend, they're the ones responsible for not having evenings for private functions and wedding receptions, because they've contracted those nights away to bands well in advance of the season. All the bands allowed. This is just an attempt by the Beach Club to gain additional revenue. Nothing wrong with that, except that it does violate, in my opinion, the understanding that we had. It seems to me that we need to have some kind of a balance here. They should have some opportunity to have music and gain revenue. The surrounding neighborhood, which is quite substantial, involves a number of different home associations and people in the Fire District and Terrace Association and West Quake Association. The people ought to have an opportunity to enjoy their properties and have some peace and quiet. If we have Friday nights added, although the intention now is not to have it every single Friday, it will soon become every single Friday. It just seems to me that the right of property owners to peace and enjoyment and reasonable use of their property is equal to a business's desire to have additional income.
Okay, you're going to have to wrap it up.
Pardon?
You're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. So I would urge you to deny this motion and give the property owners some break. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak?
Could I ask the attorney representing the Bonnet Shores Club to come back up, please? Does that testimony that was just offered, does that represent the part that you were in negotiations with?
That is
What
correct.
what he said?
That is correct.
And is that correct?
I was involved in those, in the hearings before the Department of Business Regulation on the appeal. Yes, I was.
Okay, so the information he just gave us, that's correct. You had a resolution there and an agreement to forego the Friday nights?
No, there was no agreement to forego Friday nights. The agreement that was reached had to do with the duration of live entertainment on Saturday night and Sunday night. Friday night never came up expressly in the course of those negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on the matter? Vote to close the public hearing, are we? Okay, anybody else? No? Oh, come on up. Please state your name and...
My name is Paul DeCesare.
Excuse me. Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter now in hearing?
I do.
Okay, could you spell your name for the stenographer, please?
DeCesare. I'd like to just reiterate and verify what Robert Lovegreen has stated. Let's go back about 10 years, and in that time, the hours of operation of the Beach Club were restricted to the Sunday and the Saturday night. And the sound is definitely better than it was. In those days, it was bad, okay? I live at the top of the hill, so I'm quite a ways away. And we definitely heard it, and we heard it a lot. So it was a real issue. So the Beach Club has made substantial strides in making it better. It's better. But even myself, even at the top of the hill on a Saturday night, we'll hear it. It's not loud, it's not disturbing, but I'm a quarter of a mile away. So I imagine that down lower, with no sound barrier, that those people down there, the Lovegreen family and other people do hear it. So I'm wondering why the Beach Club needs to expand their income. And I mean, it's a big organization. There's a lot going on down there. They have a lot of members. And I'm wondering if this is strictly for financial gain and whether it's worth disturbing the neighbors that are in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, anybody else? We'll vote to close the public hearing then, okay? So like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. Okay, so we can take a vote on this at this point? We're ready to vote on it?
Yep.
Okay, the motion to, Bob, can you help us with the motion because we want to add in the time on Friday nights? So
Right,
a potential motion to add or lift the restrictions and allow entertainment until 11:30?
Right, the request by the Beach Club was to allow entertainment on Friday nights until 11:30 in the evening.
Okay, so...
Right now, that's not allowed, so that's what they're asking to be able to do.
Right, so I'll make that motion from May to September, right? The first weekend in September was the motion. Right. And that was the time of
So the
operation.
time frame is from May
to September.
mid-May to late September. And
You
it's
can,
to-
well, you can limit it any way you'd like. I mean, there's nothing in the advertisement that talks about a time, it just talks about Friday nights till 11:30. It doesn't talk about a season.
No, it does, I think. It said from May. I
Third
read it
weekend in May
to
to last weekend in
September, to the
September.
first weekend in September. It did say that, so I just want to make sure. Sorry, I knew it was May to September, so, okay, so I just want to make sure that's in there.
So
Well, I mean,
move-
in the ad, it talks about 11:30 on Friday.
From, until 11:30,
I'm still not,
starting in May.
I'm still not seeing anything that talks about May till September.
It's in the letter,
It's
it
in
is
his
not in
letter.
the ad.
And I think that's what the applicant's looking for.
Talks about the third weekend in May until the last weekend in September is
Yes,
what they're talking about.
yes. Okay, so I'm going to make that motion.
So move. And you'll second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to discuss?
Opposed?
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
2-2, motion fails. Moving on. Sorry about that. Moving on, we're going to go back to the consent agenda, item 4. That was left open for discussion on the design for the garden club at Gazebo Park, so we'll pick up on that. Anybody else would like to speak on motion 4? John?
I want to remind people where we were. We were talking about,
The trees at the post office.
right,
The Gazebo Park.
How are you?
Hi, John.
John Hodnett from Ocean Road in Narragansett. I'm a member of the planning board, but I'm not here speaking on behalf of the planning board, just my personal opinions as a resident of Narragansett. I live in the area of the post office, however, I don't have a view affected by it. And as Mike DeLuca will tell you, for years, I've been hounding him about those trees, saying they're probably the ugliest things I've ever seen, and wanted to get them down. And thankfully, over time, things worked it out. The recreation department came in and took them all down. And I was so excited when I drove, by one day and saw that tremendous view. And so I just started poking around a little bit, trying to find out what the town was going to do. I think it's great that there's a combination with a local group to come in and provide materials and consultation. However, I do disagree with the format of the landscaping. I've always thought that post office is a fabulous building, and to have it screened like that from two sides never made real sense to me. It's got wonderful Palladian windows. It's the last commercial structure really left in the pier that takes us back to history. The vistas when you pull onto, when you come down Kingstown Road from Trio at the post office are wide open. Every different angle is tremendous, even with the stumps in the ground right now. The view is incredible. And I really think that with some compromise with, if the garden club was given directions to go back and say, let's find some salt-resistant species, has a little color, different times of the year, but keep it down 6, 7, 8 feet, I think that would be tremendous. Back in '93 when they planted those aprovites, they were probably only 6, 7, 8 feet high. We said, they're going to grow slow. Well, they turned into the ugliest trees the town has ever seen. And I did do a little research into some of the trees. I don't profess to be a gardening expert, but the red cedar, not all of us may know, but that is a needled evergreen tree. It's not, a deciduous tree. It's essentially a pine tree. Similar, different, but, same style as what we've had there before. It's a pine tree. And in a natural state, it can grow from 30 to 65 feet. Now, that may be stunted there because of the weather, the salt. Still a pretty good-sized tree. It can get a spread from 8 to 25 feet. The plan is to have 24 in there. That's a lot of big red cedar trees. The other tree, the Bosnian pine, obviously, it's another pine. We plan to put 7 of those. That gets us up to 31. We're looking at pine trees in that stretch. Again, you're looking at a height of 50 to 70 feet. However, they say in cultivated areas, it may be as low as 30 to 40 feet. Spread, 20 to 40 feet. Again, a considerable, size tree. The winter king, which is not a pine tree, but that has a height of anywhere from 25 to 35 feet, a spread of 25 to 35 feet, and they plan to put 4 of those in there. So we're looking at 35 trees, some great shrubs. I'd love to see substantial, if not all the trees, gone and keep it at low-lying shrubbery. I think the view is fabulous, and I think it'll be a great backdrop. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. But again, I appreciate the generosity of the community groups involved, but I think if the council finds it worthy to investigate, I'd love to see them go back and see if they could come up with a plan that took things down a little.
Thanks, John.
I wasn't aware of this plan until tonight, but I certainly agree with Mr. Hodnett's comments on the trees. I just looked at the plan. It's a beautiful plan if you're doing a screen. And this is definitely, as it's presented, a screening of the post office. Post office is a beautiful historical building. It looks much prettier without the arborvitae screen. And Mr. Hardner is correct, there are 24 or 23 cedars, and that's going to act as a total screen. It's not only going to act as a screen so you can't see the post office, but it's going to stunt the grass in the common. Everything north of that is going to have a problem growing. So you're going to have a grass problem too here that's going to be a result of this. And I agree again with Mr. Hardnett that an accent vertical would look beautiful there. The cedars would look beautiful, 1 or 2, 3 cedars as an accent, but I believe it's totally overplanted. It's great to get something free. Perhaps they can go somewhere else, but I really think The buffer should be simply for the parking areas around the post office. And you don't need more than 4 or 5 foot high shrub for that buffer. And they have some beautiful plants suggested there. So that's really all my comments are. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne.
I'm Ann Richardson. I'd like to speak on behalf of the Garden Club.
Welcome.
The plant material, everyone is going to have opinions about the plant material. I will tell you that the junipers that were selected are a cultivar, Canarii. They do not grow to 50 feet tall. Canarii is a cultivar that is a female clone that has wonderful blueberries in the winter, and that will not, should not ever get more than 20 feet tall. The Bosnian pines, if you look on Wikipedia, they do get up to 60 or 70 feet. But in an environment such as ours, which is incredibly difficult, they should never get more than 30 feet tall. We were given instructions as a club to screen the parking at the post office. You have large post office trucks delivering mail coming in there that need to be hidden when they're there and parked. They are 10 feet tall. The plant material that we are installing is going in at 5 and 6 feet. Everything is slow growing. Nothing will attain the height of the arborvitae that have just been removed. And if you look at the plan, there is a wonderful element of height and lesser height. We chose many different materials because we don't know what's going to grow there. If you pick one thing, you have the result that you have. One thing there, if it dies, it all dies. You can talk about plant material till the cows come home. We have to see what's going to grow. Nothing is for sure, and nothing will ever grow to 90 feet. And I'm happy to take questions.
And you said you received instruction. Who from?
In our wonderful discussions with Steve Wright, who is doing his very best and who has been incredibly wonderful to work with, at the very beginning we said, what are the goals of this design? Because you would never bother to make the effort unless you knew what people wanted. And the goals were to screen the parking lot and to provide a background for the weddings and all of the wonderful events that happen in that gazebo. So that's what we tried to do. And I will say this now because I don't think it's worth further discussion, we have gone through a very lengthy process in our own club to come up with this money and a plan that has been stamped by a landscape architect. We cannot simply change it without going through another lengthy process and more money. And we're not particularly interested in it, to be honest. So that's our position. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Wayne.
Wayne D'Amato, and first let me just thank the Garden Club because I'm sure that they did a tremendous amount of work. That's not what we're talking about or what our concerns are. What I heard tonight was two different things. One, it will take a very long time for these things to grow, and two, they should not. But neither one of those are definite that they will not grow. That's a beautiful building. I agree with John. It's a beautiful building. It does have certain problems. You know, the dumpster area in back, it doesn't look attractive. We should do something, obviously, with the gazebo. We have weddings there constantly. My gosh, my own son was supposed to have a wedding there, except it rained. And certainly we would want to have something there. But I would caution us before we turn around and totally put a property line or define a property line. Every July, there is the road race. We all sit on our porches, we watch it, it's a wonderful event. It amazes me how we can cram 3,000 people into an intersection. I laugh at the amount of damage that gets done in our own landscaping for people who are going through it because it is so crowded out there, and every year we have our landscaper come back in and fix everything up. Think for a moment, not just on the aesthetics of the planting and high, low, it probably would, it shouldn't, whatever, but how is it going to hold up on the blessing of the Fleet Road race? How is it going to look the following week? Have we given enough thought to this? I really caution the council to say, gosh, I feel like we're just being rushed into a, well, it's almost planting season, let's hurry up and do something. Worse things could happen, and then we turn around and we put this on hold and perhaps take a second look at it. But I saw on the plans, and Steve Wright was kind enough to explain to me on the phone, he kept using the word, we're going to anchor the corners, anchor the corners. You don't anchor the corners with a small tree. And the trees that he picked do have the potential of growing 25 to 30 feet. That impacts myself and all my neighbors, and quite frankly, I think it destroys the view of the post office. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Maurice Harrison. I also live at the Pier Townhouses, and as everyone else has said, I appreciate what the club has done. I just think that there has to be a compromise, and there has to be something else that can be done that can satisfy both sides of this picture. I think it's unfair to move ahead with a plan when people so object to it. That impacts, our view and our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody from the council? I mean, I was hearing that the garden club kind of wants to go with this plan. It didn't seem like there would be a compromise on the plan in front of us. Could you come back up? I was just want to.
We made a substantial investment in this plan. We revised it 3 times and have looked at all of the sustainability lists in terms of plant material with the University of Rhode Island. We have done our due diligence. And we also, I think, satisfied what we felt were the parameters of what the town wanted. I have looked at Google Maps, and I've been trying to figure out what views are going to be obstructed. It's not up to me. I really think it's up to the people who are saying that their views are going to be obstructed to prove it, because nothing is going to even achieve the height of the trees that were there before. And everything is aesthetics, and everyone will have a different opinion about what is right and what is wrong. We've just been through this in our own club and made changes accordingly. And at some point, you just have to say, this is it, and we've done our best. And I think we have. I mean, the landscape architect has, stamped it, done it, and I don't think we can go back at this point and spend more money on that.
So, Susan, I don't know, Steve, I don't know if I saw you go over and speak. I think, given what we're hearing, there's probably more dialogue to be had. I don't think we want to, obviously, there's a lot of investment made by the club. We don't want that to go to waste. I suspect there could be revisions made to that plan, perhaps not at the expense of the club. And so I suspect there's a lot of opinions, right?
Yeah, let me just make not a correction, but what my instructions were and what we've been trying to do as a partnership here is what the council's always said is you try not to spend taxpayer money. And when the garden club came up to us and we said, what projects in town can we partner with? I said, this is a perfect opportunity. we lost these trees, good or bad, and why they were put in back in 1993. Obviously, I was not around, but they serve as a backdrop to many, many, many weddings and special events on this property. It is a park, and there are trees in a park, and they serve for a lot of different reasons, but it's a backdrop to a dumpster, a parking lot, and a loading platform. It's a beautiful building. I'm not going to say it's a 30-foot high building. So again, these folks are fantastic partnership, and we work together. And again, it's not just one same tree line. It's a diverse tree line with a lot of different species in here. So we think we're trying to do the right thing here, and again, over a long period of time, what Andy and the landscape architect are saying is that it's not going to get anywhere near what we just witnessed over the last 20, 25 years. So
I think I'd like to say is that we've also included in the budget replacement numbers, because we are going to lose plants. If there's another big storm, they will all not live, and we have even provided a budget to replace them in the next year. I think from our point of view, from the garden club's point of view, we have our own processes. So to just sort of, when you say, can we just revise this? Well, it takes on a whole other element. We have to go back to the board, we have to go back, we have to have everyone vote again, we have to get a new landscape plan. I'm not sure that we have the energy for that, honestly.
And someone mentioned earlier about having weddings. Think about all the weddings that have been there with the backdrop, and believe me, that makes a big difference to all the different weddings that take place down here at Gazebo Park. So we took all that into account, not just the beautiful
So I
building.
hear, I don't mean to cut you off, but I hear, I'm personally, I'm speaking for myself, I'm sympathetic to both of you. This is really the first time I think we're hearing it, and I'm also hearing the folks from the stakeholders are going to be impacted by this every day. I can't sort of internalize it all, and so I can't react to it. I'm hearing from you, I'm sympathetic. I'm hearing from these guys, I'm sympathetic. But it's a bigger issue than just for me to say yay or nay one way or the other today. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think this warrants a bigger dialogue in terms of how to move forward. That's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I think it's great, and I appreciate the club's work, and certainly we've heard from the people that are in the pier and live in the town, so I don't want it to be a burden for you guys financially, extra work, but we want to get it right. We don't want to rush just to get it done. We want to make sure it's right for everybody that lives in the town, and I know we'll get lots of different opinions, but I think you're hearing low growing is something that we've heard that we want down there. So I kind of stick to the same thing. I think more dialogue has to be had.
I would hate to say no today, because the way I think I would have to vote, listening to the people who I represent, is no. And then your money would have been sunk cost, right? It would be useless, right? I think you've made an investment. I want to figure out how we leverage that investment and not do nothing with it, right? And still beautify the town and get the town's objectives met, et cetera. But I don't think we're going to do that tonight. That's my perspective.
I appreciate that. I think one of the things that we did as a club when we found out about this project was to fast track everything, because you either plant in the next couple of weeks or you don't. And so we really did
Madam President?
substantial effort.
I understand.
Yes.
I personally think we probably should go along with the plan. And, because it's certainly, after it's planted, it's got to do some growing, and I'm sure that down the road, if it's so obnoxious and we can't live with it, you probably modify it at that level.
You could pass it with saying if something gets too high, you can cut it down.
No, I'm not saying that. A lot of it, like the testimony I heard, that a lot of that stuff may not even survive, and if it's, so I think that what kind of damage are we going to be doing if we go ahead with the project and we set it up and give it a chance to grow, and it may be something we're very happy with, and I think it's that's what we probably should do. And we don't have to waste a lot of time, and certainly, like you said, we need to plant things now, not in the summertime or whatever. So I think that it would just make more sense to go ahead with the program, with the plan, if you will, and see how it grows. And if they die and we don't like something or something isn't doing well, maybe you can make some modifications 2 or 3 years down the road. In the interim, it's not going to obstruct any of the views, and it may be something that the residents there are very, very happy with.
Matt, did you want to say something? Oh, Bob. Thanks, Doug.
I agree totally with what you just said. I've been waiting to find something I agreed with, so.
Thanks.
Matt?
Steve, who will maintain it after it's put up? Is it going to be the town? All right, and then in that area, we've had some struggles with like our Christmas tree over there in terms of the salt and the wind. I have concerns about putting up, I mean, I guess it comes down to 2 things there. Do you want more of a vegetative tree type situation, or do you want it wide open, a more wide open vista? And we're hearing kind of 2 different visions for the property. We're going to have to pick one, I guess.
Well, the Christmas tree is out in the center of the property, and we changed that. So we're having that donated every year, and we put that in and we take it out, and it's a cut tree.
But any area near the water, Steve, we know there's problems with the salinity.
We're putting irrigation in now,
right.
so.
I mean, but you know where I'm coming from. I mean, when you're that close to the water, we all know that the trees aren't as good in the coastal areas. The soil's not as, there's more salinity in the soil. So I'm struggling with more of a, do we want that more open vista? We talk about weddings, but I mean, I think it can go either way.
Well, where it's located, we're prepared to maintain it. That's our partnership with the Garden Club. We're going to maintain it.
And so to the height again, if we go with this plan and there's trees that are growing beyond what we really want for that area, can they be easily just cut down? I mean, is that an absolute, yeah, we can just say lower them because they're an obstacle for people and we want to enjoy that area? Okay. I mean, I as long as I know that that's a possibility, these people really do not want to be blocked by that gorgeous view they have. They want to walk and see. And I'm going to go with it as long as I know.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
It'll be nice.
As long as they can cut them down if they're blocking anybody's view out there.
And we also heard some expert testimony from Mr. Brady tonight, too, so.
Okay, so the motion's, yeah, are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, so do I have a
There's no
motion?
desire to table it or continue it, as Glenn has suggested.
He said, is there a desire to table it and give it some time?
No. What's the point? They have to stop planting. They don't have that much time. It's the planting season.
So I have a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Nay.
Motion fails 2-0. So will we have a future plan for that area then? Nope. Okay, moving along to new business. A motion to approve the 25-year lease with the South County Museum, subject to approval of state and local regulations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Pat Brady wants to talk on this.
I think we should have a discussion on this. I've got some questions.
Second with questions, okay.
doesn't realize.
And I
Mr.
don't
Brady?
know- Can I actually ask a couple questions? So, Bob, I don't know if you know this. I know Mark drafted the lease, but do you know is there an existing lease?
I don't know. I have not looked at the lease.
It's expired, right?
No, it's been 29 years, there's no lease. This is our first lease. And I know that since I have arrived here, they have done nothing but work on this lease. Yeah, Steve is a better...
Steve, do you want to come up and talk about the lease?
Do you have the lease?
The lease expired actually there were two leases. The 25-year lease in 1985 expired, and there was also a lease for the farmhouse also expired. So what I've been doing, actually Jeff had started it, was working with Grady, and then turned that over, and I've been working on it for a year with the South County Museum folks for over a year. And what you see before you, the museum lease, is a 25-year lease with a 25-year option.
And so, I guess it's hard because there isn't anything, right? So, in terms of the parcel and how it's defined, sorry, how do you, I've got the pictures and all the pieces, but what's currently covered today in terms of what they, I guess, occupy?
What you see there, everything is currently there within their common area.
So everything is the same?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Nothing has changed based on what's kind of our current understanding versus what the lease would cover?
No, actually, the only thing that's really changed is some acreage behind the sheep barn. Actually, we just squared some things off and highlighted some access points to what Mr. Brady had mentioned about 6 or 7 months ago to the council and to myself. We made that part of the lease, public access points, and you'll see that in, I believe, Exhibit A.
Okay.
So can I ask a question about the 25 years? Because that seems to be, every time we look at a lease, it seems like a long time. Can you explain to me what would be the benefit of doing a 25-year lease for the town?
It's actually 50, really, when you think about it.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's 25 years. If you think about this, as a nonprofit executing a 25-year lease provides the ability to seek funding for grants and for loans. No bank or grant, whether they're going through the Champlain Foundation or DEM, if they're a nonprofit and they have a 25-year lease, remember, these folks they've been here for 29 years. They've been great partners. They're great for the community. They've been great working for us. They're not adversarial at all. They've been great for the community. They put on a lot of public events. And so when they go for grants or for loans, for improvements for their programs, for their fixed property, they have 12 buildings on the property that are on town property. When they go before that, if they're going with a 5 or a 10, 15-year lease, it's very difficult for them to obtain grants that way. But with a 25-year lease, it's a lot easier. If you ask any nonprofit, with a 25-year lease, it's a lot easier for them to obtain those grants or loans from a bank or like from the Champlain Foundation. So that is the number one reason why it's easier for them, and there's some sustainability for an organization like them. Again, they've been here for 29 years. They're not coming into town new. Again, I can't speak more highly of working with them. And I've only been here for 2 years, and they have been working with me for over a year on this lease. Mark Masali's reviewed it. I've worked with the town manager. We've been above and beyond on every single thing. And I have to tell you, the insurance portion of it was probably one of the sticking points, and we worked on this, raised the insurance levels with South County Museum, and we're all parties are now satisfied on this portion of it too.
And the public access is really satisfied with this, right? I mean,
in perpetuity. In fact, if you go to page actually number 20, we actually highlighted 20 and 21 for public access. So there is no question in this contract, in this lease, on number 20, in perpetuity for the 25 or 50 years from now, public access is the number one priority as part of this agreement. And again, that was one of the biggest concerns that Mr. Brady brought to my attention when I first started this several months ago. And I made it one of my points to when I was sitting down and discussing this entire lease with the South County Museum folks. And they've been wonderful to deal with. Everything I brought to their attention, they have worked with to make sure that these things were in agreement.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions about the lease? Thank you.
Thanks.
Meg?
You may know the answer to this, Steve. I don't. I was just wondering if it wouldn't make sense to wait one more month, and that it would be important for the council to find out how the museum plans to integrate with the new bike path and welcome the public both to the museum and to the path. I didn't know if the museum had a 5 or a 10-year plan or an integration plan with the new bike path, and I didn't know if it would be prudent just to make sure that there are no conflicts with the town's interests or with any long or short-term plans the museum might have. So I would encourage the council to continue the motion tonight and possibly to kick this over to the planning board for an advisory opinion. I don't know if the planning board has been brought into this, but I would think if I were you, maybe the council would want to have at the very least an advisory opinion from the planning board in your packets before you agree to a lease of 25 years duration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can answer that question as far as the bike path is concerned. I've talked to the folks from the South County Museum, and again, if you go back to number 20, that paragraph, and they can come up and speak for themselves, but they've told me today, and they've told me during the discussion of this agreement that any bike path any one of the bike paths that comes forward before the council and DOT, they have no problem with through or around their property. So, and you can come up and speak for yourself if you want.
Thank you, Steve. Yes. Approach.
My name is Jim Crothers, and I'm the Executive Director at South County Museum. The position relative to the bike path that the museum has taken is that it is up to the town of Narragansett as to where the bike path is going to go. The only consideration we would ask at the museum is that you take into account the security of our buildings and the collection and the safety of our visitors. We have never taken a position as to a specific path, whether or not it is appropriate or not. That's your decision.
Thank you. Pat?
My name is Patrick Brady. I first got wind of this last Thursday with a call for an email from Steve Wright. I thank him for that heads up. But it is still a last-minute notification of a long-term, serious commitment by this town, and it's not just for 25 years, it is for 50 years. So the covering letter to the council states, the South County Museum is that the council approves a 25-year lease with the South County Museum. That technically is not true. They have a lease proposed for 25 years with an automatic option for another 25 years. There's nothing the town can do about it. If they meet the obligations of the existing lease, the town has no ability to negotiate the second 25 years, and I think that's a terrible mistake. And we had a meeting this morning, and I thank the town manager for setting up a meeting this morning. I had asked so that I could show a few plans here tonight, but it became a full-blown meeting, and she invited Michael DeLuca, Steve Wright, and Jeff Cezrine. The result of that meeting, I don't think we came to any agreements on any of the points. They're serious points. The major issue here is this has never gone to the planning board for review. In every other instance, the lease
for the museum has gone for advisory opinion from the planning board. So that has not been done. I asked, number one, that that be done. Number two, that it be postponed at least a month so that I can at least get up to speed as to what all these legal documents, how damaging they are, and that the people of this town are notified that a major decision, a new lease that increases the property by 25%. It goes from 6.3 acres to 8.3 acres. Now, I'd like to just show the major issues that are the problems. If we go to the aerial photograph, Mike, that shows the bike path. That's it, right there. Thank you. The museum property is right in this location. The bike path goes from Mumford Road to the beach. We're going through it a million times. The problem is, at least the Brady bike path, one of the two alternatives that's going to the state, goes through the northern portion of a triangular wooded lot north of the sheep barn. This has never been part of the lease with South County Museum. But all of a sudden, at the last minute, it is included as part of the museum's lease, which is a stopper for the bike path going through that area. Why would you grant them a lease for the property the bike path's going through? I don't know what they're proposing for it.
Mr. Brady, I have a question on that point. On number 20 of the lease, have you read that section?
Yes.
It clearly states that we have the ability to use that property for a bike path and for other recreational purposes. I think that number 20 clarifies that argument that you're making here.
We went through that argument this morning.
Okay.
Paragraph 20 says through Conatchett Farm, not through the leased property. The leased property is a separate issue than the Conatchett Farm, and I do not.
So we have two leases here. We have one for the Conatchett Farm and one for what?
No, the town owns Conatchett Farm.
Yeah.
But we're granting a lease of a portion of it for their exclusive use.
That isn't what 20 says, though.
No, it isn't. The way I read it, it's stating that a bike path may go through Conatchett Farm. But it's not saying they should. If that statement is to be clear, it should state that the bike path may go through the triangle being proposed as additional lands to the South County Museum.
It says public use and public access to Conatchett Farm property, included but not limited to existing and future hiking trails, bike paths, and other passive recreation offered within the Conatchett Farm property. Is a priority of the town of Narragansett. It's right in the lease.
I agree that it's in the lease, but I don't agree. The first sentence is very clear. South County Museum acknowledges throughout the term of this agreement the partnership is the creating with the town of Narragansett, obtaining the management goes within the Conatchett Farm property.
Yep.
Public use and public access to the Conatchett Farm property. It does
But
not
Pat, it does say throughout the term of the lease, the museum will continue to offer and in no way limit, condition, or restrict public access to the Conatchett Farm property through the entrance and the use of the public parking area adjacent to the museum. For security reasons, all they're asking is for restroom usage not to be used. So they're not restricting the use to the farm through the property.
I don't understand your statement. Who is restricting what here?
The museum is not restricting. It says it's continuing to offer and will not limit or restrict access to the property, access to Conatchett Farm through the museum property. That's what I'm reading here. Is that right, Bob? I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, Conatchett Farm property is the entirety of the property. The museum property is a portion of the Conatchett Farm.
Right?
Conatchett Farm property is the entire, it's 8 acres, I'm not quite sure what it is,
Right.
that is owned by the town of Narragansett. So giving access through the entire property. We have, the town of Narragansett has access through the entire
It's not,
Comanche Farm
and they're
property.
not going to limit or
Nothing limiting
restrict
here.
the use, is the way I'm reading it.
Yes, I believe that language is extremely vague. But what the issue here on that triangular piece of property is that a proposed bike path is proposed to go through it. Why would you put that in a lease? What do they want that triangle for? No one's made a presentation to this council as to
I
what
don't
they want.
debate that, I'm just reacting to your assertion on the language.
Okay, I'll just read one item on regarding the bike path and what the museum feels about the bike path. This is in 2009 before the planning board, an executive summary of what their policy is. In 2009, the planning board regards the bike path. Security of South County Museum buildings and grounds should not be compromised by the construction of roadways and/or a bike path. Very clear. Now, I think I think they need to put that in writing, that they're going to allow a bike path through their leasehold if the town requests it, number one. I think that's imperative.
It's already there in number
says.
20. It's already, Mr. Solicitor, isn't that what it says there?
That's what it says.
I mean,
The
that's
entire
what it
Comanche
says.
Farm property.
That's what I'm reading here. 5 times I think I've read it, and that's what I'm reading. We can put a whole new bike path, and we put 5 bike paths in there if we decide we needed to do it, the way this thing reads.
I hope you're right. You are definitely highlighting that issue.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because that's what it reads. That's the way I interpret it. And I read your notes prior to coming to the meeting, and I looked at those things, and as I read the lease, it's been clearly addressed in the lease. And to send it back to the planning board, for what purpose? It's coming back to us to make a decision on the lease anyway. Now, if we want to talk about the 25 years, I'm interested in listening to some comments about the 25 years, and the 25 years after that, and the 25 years after that. I'm not sure if I can make the first 25, but I am concerned, and I'd like to hear a little bit more in that area. Because it does seem like, it seems like a long time to me, only because I'm not familiar with leases. It was explained to me by a lady before the meeting that you need the 25 years to obtain grants. And, you know, an example, somebody isn't going to pay to put a new roof on one of the buildings if you're only going to be there for 5 years, and Doug McLaughlin's going to move in there and put a restaurant there. They're not going to do that. So I can understand that. But if anybody has anything else to talk about as far as that 25-year figure, I think that's an important thing to talk about.
I would agree. I'm interested in that, less about the term itself. I mean, as a practical matter, the property is a single-use property. They've been there 29 years. There's not too many other tenants that are going to come in and actually use it for too much else. I react, just being in the business that I am, to renewable options without review and consent. But that's just my bias in the business I'm in. So I don't go for the effective 50-year lease. I would much prefer to see a straight-up 25 years with a, revisiting the term in a future condition.
Well, regards to 25 years, I personally don't have a problem with whether it's 20 or 25. I think 25 probably is a reasonable number.
Mr. Brady, it's running out of time.
I'm sorry?
We're running out of time, so finish up.
I've got 2 major issues regarding right-of-way. If we could go to the right-of-way, the pink-colored plan. The second major issue is the right-of-way from Strathmore down to the beach. It goes existing right-of-way going through the property over an existing gravel road. Nowhere in the lease is it specified that that easement is a legal easement for the town to pass and repass. Now, I'd like to read from the planning board's review of their master plan in 2009. And I quote planning board member Dr. O'Neill, and he states, Dr. O'Neill asserts that Ann Hoxie Lane cannot handle an increase in traffic if more people begin using the site. He points out that the planning board has to look to the future and that that future may not include the museum. Therefore, to limit access to the entire area is not good planning. That is one member of the planning board, making it clear that that right-of-way needs to be defined and kept through the property for at least emergency access. The chairman of the planning board at the same meeting, Chairman Fleming states, Chairman Fleming answers no, explaining that what he is saying that there is a roadway from one end to the other. And this property needs 2 points of access because this property consists of 170 acres and has potential. And the planning board has to explore the entire potential of the land. Chairman Fleming notes that even though several people want the area to have a limited use, it is not the intention of the board to limit the potential. If that right-of-way is not shown on it, that should go back to the planning board. We need the planning board to review this. This master plan was thrown out by the planning board in 2009. They need to go back to the planning board and explain why they need to increase the lease and why they're trying to restrict access through it. Now, I've got 2 other points, and I'm not going to belabor them tonight because I'm hoping you, at a minimum, will delay this and postpone it and put it forward to the next council meeting. But I really think it needs to go back to the planning board for an advisory opinion. Why are they being kept out of the loop here? I don't understand that. Why isn't there going to be a public hearing on a lease in the middle of a valuable piece of property, 170 acres, that is not going to public hearing before we commit to 50 years to this? I want the museum to succeed, but I think the town needs to be protected. That's what I have, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Kathleen?
I'm a neighbor of South County Museum. When I came here 10 years ago, the town had no interest in this property at all. The South County Museum has tended that property carefully. It has maintained it. If you go in there now, it is more beautiful there and better maintained than it was even 10 years ago. They have proven that they're a dependable stakeholder. They've been dependable for 29 years, and I don't understand why, with this reputation that they have, that an issue of a lease for 25 years is causing so much dismay. Their programs have improved tremendously since I came here. They draw many, many people into those programs. Their quilt show is absolutely magnificent. When every July they have eggs hatching that they've planned, children come and get to hold these baby chicks. They don't even want to leave. They don't want to go home for lunch. It's a fabulous program. I've been to programs there that have absolutely amazed me. And yet here we are saying we don't want this organization to have the security of a 25-year lease with the option to renew it for another 25. I don't understand. I don't understand how you can step on somebody like that.
Bob?
I know why I stay now. I'm glad this young lady just got up and explained, I think, exactly what I was thinking while I was sitting there. And another thought I had, we still don't have a bike path. Huh? Gee, you know what it reminds me of? A soap opera. This reminds me of a soap opera. You turn them on 20 years later and come back in, and there it is. It's still going on, and nobody makes a decision. Anyway, here's my recommendation. Knowing a lot less than was just stated to you about the museum and all that goes on there, although my grandson received a job there, he has a problem, and they had him work there over for part of the summer, so I thought that was great. But that's got nothing to do with what I'm going to say. I think what you should do is give the property to the museum. What is all this about 25-year leases and 50-year leases? And even though I'll be dead, like it doesn't make any, like a few people here have already indicated, but it is so ridiculous when you've got a group of people. I was thinking of these things: liberty, truth, justice, and equality. But the main one that's behind it, and I've said it in front of you before, is trust, which I have lost. And I think that this is a very simplistic decision you have. You've got a great thing going. They do great works. Forget the lease. Give it to them.
I just want to react to... No, I would love to react, not to you simply,
Okay.
not just to you, Mr. Traeger, but also to Kathy as well. My reaction, please, I have tremendous respect for Mr. Carruthers, for Daryl. They do exceptional work. They are great neighbors. They provide tourism. They help the economy. There is no doubt in my mind that they will be here for a good long time doing tremendous work. I support the lease, make no mistake. Mr. Brady clearly knows how I feel about the bike path, so I could care less whether they subsume extra land, and the bike path does not go through that specific area. So, and that's on the record, so I'm not disclosing anything that's, that's not public knowledge. All that said, I'm a business person and I'm a risk person, and unfortunately, I suspect Jim Carruthers and Daryl will not be there 25 years from now, and therefore, as a risk person, I always like the ability to revisit terms of a business arrangement made 25 years previous. And so, please do not mistake my questioning of the desire to have one more look at something 25 years from now. Of course, I will not be here either, hopefully not be dead, but I think hopefully I've learned my lesson by then. And so I want just to be on the record, I am very supportive of the museum, of the lease. I intend to support it fully, but from a rationale perspective, business practice would dictate you want to have another look at something in 25 years.
So, to that point, Glenna, because I mean, I know they've been great partners. I support the lease, and it's fine with me. But is there an opt-out at any time? I mean, if the museum or the town at any time could opt out. So, I mean, that's always on the table as far as the risk piece, right? Or not? Could they?
I just got this 15 minutes ago.
Okay.
So whether or not there's an opt-out, I mean, if you want that in there, obviously, I mean, you can craft anything in a lease. I mean, whatever you want to put in it, the terms of the lease can be the terms of the lease. Whether or not there's an opt-out in here,
The way I read it, Bob, is as long as they fulfill all their terms,
but I think
it's an auto-renew. It's an
yes, it
extent.
seems like it's an automatic renewal. As long as they do what they want,
At
and
the
they
same
renew it within
terms
the
and
period of time
conditions.
that they're supposed to, they have the right to renew it for 25 years.
That's
Yes.
right.
Okay, so...
Things change in 25 years. You might want an opportunity to revisit the terms and conditions. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, sounds good.
Good evening, members of the Town Council. My name is William Isay. I'm a neighbor of the museum. I live on Strathmore Street, and I'm a former board member of the museum, and I'm a current member of the museum. I want to echo Kathy Kelleher's points. It's a wonderful organization, and it's not only with the events that they have, but it preserves the history of this area. They've got some wonderful exhibits there, including pictures and other memorabilia of the town of Narragansett. It's a great repository for Narragansett features over the years. And 25 years is not that long for a nonprofit. It'd be a shame if they weren't there. This facility draws a lot of people to the town. It's very good for the town. They're great for the neighbors there. They've done a wonderful job. And I think the lease should be approved the way it is now with a 25-year lease and an option to renew after that. If this museum goes somewhere else, the town will be very sorry. They'll lose a wonderful asset for that particular property. That property is a great piece of property, and one of the reasons it's a great piece of property is because the museum is there, and they've maintained that area that they have under the lease in an exceptional manner over the years. The other thing I'd like to say is this thing about the bike path. There's two alternatives on the bike path, and the best one is over the old Seaview Railroad bed. That provides magnificent views, and Representative Tansey and a group recommended that, and the town council first sent that up to the DOT for evaluation. It's much better than the Brady plan, which would take out thousands of trees. So I urge you to approve this lease, and as it is now. It's a fine lease, and the museum deserves that, and the town will benefit it for this lease over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve a 25-year lease with South County Museum, subject to approval of state and local regulations. All in favor?
Can I speak? Can I speak? Yeah, I'd like to. I haven't said anything.
Okay.
Because the museum is so valued by the community, that's why I think town staff has spent so much time working on this lease, spending time going over it, and because of the role that the museum plays over the last 29 years in the community, and that's very appreciated. And Pat Brady's bringing forward his concerns and trying to point out some perhaps weaknesses in the lease. I would say on this particular lease, because of their track record, because of the museum's track record and their relationship with the town, I think 29 years, I'd say, you know, something in that range is what we should put for a continuation. But I also am uncomfortable with the opt-out, the automatic renewal option. So I would ask to amend the motion to include a removal of that clause, the automatic renewal. But that's just my opinion because of some of the things that we've heard tonight.
So the amendment to have that opt-out clause, Glenn, is that something that you felt comfortable with? So if we could do that.
So I moved,
Okay, so.
Well, we'll vote on the amendment, I guess.
Okay, so
I'll move to amend it to remove the automatic renewal clause for 25 years. Second.
What does that mean? We're just giving them the 25-year lease and that's it?
Yep.
With no option for renewal? I'm not in favor of that.
I mean, you can also craft language so that it's not an automatic renewal.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's what right. I mean, that's.
It can be renewed, you know, under mutual consent.
Mutual consent or advising consent of the town council or something like that.
Okay, mutual consent.
You know, advising consent of the town council is probably right.
Okay.
And I'm sure they can craft language, so I mean, because they need some.
You just want it sort of like so it just doesn't happen and nobody thinks about it. It's in perpetuity. And if, to the extent, again, Jim Carruthers is great. You love, and Daryl's running this thing. It's a machine at this point. Runs like a top. God forbid the two of those fall away. There's great staff there now. Different people come in. You don't know that that will always be the situation. You want the ability to actually evaluate if things aren't going the way you want them to impose certain conditions that might not be here right now.
It just means you have the ability.
What is their option at a year before that 25th year? They want to.
They just indicate that they want to renew the lease.
And that comes back to the council then to approve it for what? 25
I don't believe it comes back to the council. No, I believe it's right now. They have an option to renew for 25 years.
It just would happen.
It would happen automatically.
I'm sure there could be language crafted that. I'm sure they're looking for comfort also.
That's right.
And that it can't just be on the whim of the town council that
That's right.
we don't, you know, as long as all the terms of the lease are complied with, you know what I mean, advice or consent of the council just to look at it and say, yes, everything is fine and we're going to renew the lease. I mean, you don't want to make it difficult for them to get the 25-year extension, I'm assuming. And I haven't been involved in the negotiations at all.
And I would imagine, do you want to speak, Jim? Sorry to make this so difficult.
We do not have any problem with the concept of an option. In fact, in reading the lease, my perspective is that it's an option that goes two ways. In other words, this evening, you would say, we approve the lease. In 25 or 24 years, we would reapply for it to continue, the option being on both sides of the coin. The town council at that point in time could say, no, you have not been good stewards to the property. Things may have changed over the course of time. So I don't really see any need at this point to change the wording of the contract or the lease. And to address the 25-year perspective, that's absolutely critical, and the option to renew is critical as well. Most of our capital improvements are funded by grants provided in specifically the Champlain Foundation or others. And more often than not, they are, as Mr. McLaughlin addressed, requests for capital improvements that are expensive or bank loans that are expensive. And if you are going to put on a new roof to a building, something like that, and you're going to put on 20-year shingles, but you can only tell the people that you have a 10-year lease, that just doesn't work for us. Every single grant application that I have to fill out, I'm very comfortable with saying we have a 25-year lease with an option to renew with the town. And there's never been any question about that.
Matt?
So it's inferred in that agreement, so you can withdraw your...
Well, but
Well,
my
no,
reading,
no.
my reading of it
the
is
language
automatic.
that's not what the language says. The language is that they have the option. So, I mean, if that's the intent, something can be crafted. You can instruct Mr. McSally to craft it
That's
so
what
that
we
you
should
want...
do.
It
both
does,
sides
Jim,
to
it
be able to
does
look
say,
at
it
That's
does
what we
say
should
you
do.
would
Okay.
provide notice.
We should send it to Mark.
It does say you will provide
no
notice, but
objection
if we didn't agree, it does not give us a provision to say no.
The property belongs to you. That's the part that
I'm just saying.
I understand, but
Agree.
Canonchit Farm belongs to the town of Narragansett.
But if you have
It's
an
a le-
automatic renewal clause,
It's a legal
automatic.
question,
No, it
right?
is.
We're
That's-
playing lawyer
yeah.
now, so.
Right.
No,
I
it
know
is.
it.
It's automatic.
I'm not very good at that.
Me either.
I'll be happy to answer any other questions. I would like to address this little triangle that Mr. Brady was talking about. It's not a land grab. When we were negotiating or working with Steve Wright as far as renegotiating this lease, it's actually a combination of original leases that the museum had with the town. The farmhouse and the farm property lease was the last one that was enacted, and that was in 1999. And so when we were asked to have the property surveyed, all we did was follow the boundary lines and the fence lines through that little triangle that Mr. Brady is so concerned about. It was not a land grab. The fencing is there from probably 30 years ago when the town managed the farm part of the museum. So that's what that's all about. It has nothing to do with any concept of interference from a bike path.
Thank you.
He's been up already.
Yeah.
He's been up already. He's got his hand up.
You've already spoke. Quickly, come on up, Pat, and then we'll get to the motion.
Mike, if you could show the colored lease history. Mr. Cleller is talking about the triangle, the wooded triangle to the north of the sheep barn. Can you shrink that to show the whole? You do any more? No? There we go, perfect, thank you. That has never been included in any lease with South County Museum. The first lease was 1985 and included this portion right here. In 1992, they requested an amendment to include what is now the center for the visitor center. In 2000, they requested this portion right here. And the description of it is exactly that way. It does not even include the sheep barn. It does not include the ruined stables. They encroached on those for 10, 15 years outside of the lease. so that the town was liable for anything that happened over that period, because it was not in their lease. They have encroached, and they are now trying to encroach on this piece of property.
But the town, now the town is off the hook. They're not responsible now because it comes under their insurance, right?
That is correct. But the issue is...
And the maintenance falls under their domain.
Except for the right-of-way through the property, yes.
Seems like it's a good deal for the
But
town.
who is going to be liable for the bike path going through that triangle?
Who's going to be liable for it? We don't even know if it's going through there yet. We don't even know that.
Let's stick to the lease.
But eventually, like I said, all the provisions are in here just for that type of activity once we...
The only reason I stood up was to clarify that it was never in the lease.
I understand that. No,
Okay,
I
thank you,
understand.
Pat.
I understand.
Okay.
But what's the point of, what's the point of going on with that, whether it's in or it's out? It's in now, and that's to the advantage of the town, because now they maintain it. It's part of their package. Let's move on.
All right, so we have a
please.
motion that's going
So,
to be
I
modified.
mean, we can withdraw all the motions and start from scratch. How do you want to handle this? I mean...
Why don't you make a motion, Matt?
Make
All
a
right, I'm
motion.
going to make a motion that we accept the lease, except for page 1, with instructions to Mark to provide the 25-year lease with a option for renewal that's mutually agreeable to both sides.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. A motion to approve a contract with Prism Energy, an authorized agent for National Grid, for lighting improvements and upgrades at the community center in the net amount of $16,437.18. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. A motion to approve the installation of 6 new manholes in the pier area utilizing the town's existing miscellaneous repair and construction contract with George Sherman Sand and Gravel, Inc., in the total amount of $27,500. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. A motion to authorize the use of the miscellaneous repair and construction contract with George Sherman Sand and Gravel, Inc., to reconstruct and pave a portion of Harbor Island Road in an amount not to exceed $45,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a
Question.
question. How soon will that work start down there on that Harbor Island?
It's a good question. We still have to obtain Coastal Resource Management Council permission. It'll require a maintenance assent as we're constructing it to the same dimensions in the same place. And we also need to provide the property owners a 30-day notice, which allows us to have a moratorium on any road cuts for 3 years.
Okay.
So it'll be about a little over 30 days. We can turn
It'll
that.
be over 30 days before you start, Dave?
It'll be a little bit longer than 30 days.
30 days?
So if you approve it tonight, we'll proceed with those other issues.
Okay. I was just wondering if you, if the manager, if you would contact the man that lives there, that owns that driveway?
Yes, we
Could you
can
do that, or
contact
have
him.
somebody call him and explain that to him?
And in the meantime, we are taking care of that issue that popped up on him to make sure that that doesn't reoccur.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. A motion to approve a contract with Equaqua Water Technologies, LLC, to furnish and install new bioxide storage tanks, pumps, and controls for 3 wastewater division pump stations in the amount of $88,220. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. A motion to appoint an individual to the Towers Committee to fill a term left vacant by Otis Wyatt, in which term will expire in 8/1/2004.
I move to appoint Meg Rogers.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
3-1, motion passes. Executive session. I have a motion to retire to executive session at the end of the April 7, 2014 Town Council meeting as accordance with 42-46-4 to discuss United Water RI PUC docket 4434 in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5 with the appointment of Don Maroney as solicitor as clerk pro tem. Glenna?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Susan, aye. Thank you, everyone. The meeting's adjourned.